The views and opinions expressed in this video are strictly mine. They do not endorse anything. This is strictly information. They do not express the views of YouTube, the government, or anything else like that. Let's talk about drugs. It's my opinion that all drugs should be legalized for many reasons. Number one, cocaine being illegal has never stopped someone who wants to use it from using it. All it's done is created criminal activity. Also, there are no good drugs and there are no bad drugs. It's all how you use it. If you get an operation on your eye, they put cocaine in your eye. That's why it's a Schedule 2. Yet marijuana is a Schedule 1 because they find no use for it medically. But really, drugs are just a tool. Drugs are tools for changing your consciousness. It's another fundamental thing. The war on drugs is a war on your right to alter your consciousness, which in my opinion is the most fundamental right that you have. Take away everything, and that's all that's left, your consciousness. The war on drugs is also funding terrorism all around the world, funding Taliban. It's funding it's funding the cartels who are committing mass murder. It's funding Chinese fentanyl labs. Also, don't give me this shit about, well, those are destructive drugs. Alcohol is one of the most destructive drugs. It's a tool. It destroys more families, kills more people than just about any of them. Yet we see it advertised everywhere. It's going to cut down on the amount of money that we have to dump into the police departments. Because the police departments are basically militarized at this point. And I think that the major contributor to that factor is the war on drugs. So that is, the police are not good or bad either. The police are tools. The police are tools to enforce the laws. And those laws need to change. If we were to legalize all drugs, look at that dog. Fuck. If we were to legalize all drugs in the United States, that would keep the money here. That would be a tremendous boom to the economy. Billions and billions of dollars. That would make the drugs safer as well, because there'd be an open market for them, and people would make them more pure. And if you made shitty dope, you'll go out of business. Apparently it happens to heroin dealers all the time. When I was in rehab, they said that the heroin addicts in there, they said that when they heard somebody OD'd, they'd try to go find who had that dope, because that was the strongest dope, and they wanted that. We need to focus on rehabilitation and removing the stigma of drug addiction and alcoholism. Drug and alcoholism is a disease. It's a disease of the mind, and it needs to be treated as such. You give yourself that addiction. You give yourself that disease. But you know what? You also give yourself cancer by smoking. And there's not a stigma on that. when people get cancer, they go to the hospital. And most of it's treated. If there's an addict or an alcoholic, they think that something is fundamentally wrong with them. And it needs to be treated in a hospital. You give that person other drugs, which are tools to detox, so they don't die. And then you focus on treatment and getting them well, because they all have the capability of recovery. You know, you give yourself diabetes, but there's a stigma on that as well, but not as bad, you know, but of course it's treatable. But in the same breath, drug addiction is the only disease that'll turn you into a thieving, lying asshole. Cancer will not drive you to stealing $20 out of your mother's purse. Drug addiction will, though. Drugs is also going to it's going to force the criminals to engage in legal behavior. Okay? They want to stay in the drug business? Fine. But what that's going to do, it's going to stop the funding of for-profit prisons, which is a huge problem. It's going to keep the fathers out of prison in impoverished communities, which is another problem. There's not enough fathers in these impoverished communities. Anyways, I guess all that's needed to do this is for people to just have an honest, objective look at it. Politicians as well, you know. But I think my main point is that you're right. It is the most fundamental right there is to alter your consciousness. I don't know. Every time I do one of these, I have a lot of things that I'm going to bring up, but I always forget one point on it. But, you know, when I talk these things out, it helps me analyze things in my own life, you know, because you're not just sitting there with these thoughts bouncing around in your head. So anyways, if anybody's listening to this and they get a little something from it, go ahead and share amongst yourselves. Do your thing. And if anybody out there is suffering, by no means am I some recovery poster boy, but I kind of have a good inclination of how you can get well. So feel free to reach out to me at any time. Okay, have a good day.